Hey folks, how you doing? Welcome back for another episode where I talk about things. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. So happy post Labor Day. Hope everybody's having a great time getting back to school, to work, to volunteering, to whatever you do with your time. This video is about AI, specifically how to make AI bots do your work, right? Work for you. And a lot of people fear AI and LLMs and all these powerful tools we have now at our disposal because they think these jobs that we have are going to be taken by these bots, or these bots are going to take our jobs. The truth is, yes, there are some people who have already lost their jobs and some people who are already suffering from the fact that people are using robots instead of certain people to do certain jobs. But all in all, depending on your age, your location, your context, etc., the job that you have today, you are going to enhance it with AI bots. That's how it's going to work. So your skill is going to be amped up. Your ability to achieve things is going to be amped up by having these additional bots at your disposal, because these bots are going to automate more of your work. You may not think that right now. You may think, oh no, my job doesn't require these silly bots. I don't need to make silly images or content for a LinkedIn post or a blog. I can just keep on doing my job the way I do it, and I'm good for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is your time horizon, before you have to retire. And the reality is, most people who even don't realize it today are going to be affected by these technologies. Right? These techs are going to impact the jobs that exist today on the market. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't really matter whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. But these jobs are going to be affected by these bots. Now, the question is, how do you make the positive effect? Well, you lean into change, right? As I've always said, you don't run from the tech that's innovating everything. You lean into it. So that quite literally, right? Quite literally, you are going to be making the most of the available technology. So, for example, if you happen to work in a graphic arts job, then you want to adapt your graphic arts skills to include AI, or specifically exclude it when it meets the creative need to do so. When it makes your work more effective, notice I didn't say efficient, but effective. You could say optimized if you want, but ultimately you want it to be effective, right? Because what is effective versus efficient? Efficient means maybe you reduced cost, maybe you maximized, production versus cost, whatever it might be. Effective means that it was very competent or capable of doing what you wanted to do in a good way, in an impactful and meaningful way. That is very often more important to the bottom line than efficient. I know CFOs and COOs will often look at efficiency and say, no, it's all about efficiency. It's not all about efficiency, actually. A lot of it is about not being efficient, but being effective. For example, I remember this restaurant in DC called, I think it was Recession Busters or something like that. Maybe I'm mistaken, it was a different number restaurant, but I think that was it. They had a very big, inefficient burger. That was their whole shtick. Recession Busters. I don't know. Probably the place isn't even open anymore. I don't know. It's been decades since I last saw it. But they were making inefficient burgers that were very effective at bringing in customers, sales, and profits, or revenues. Anyway, I didn't actually see their books, but from what I understood, they were a profitable enterprise, and they did sell very profitable burgers, if you know what I mean. Like, they were definitely charging a fair bit for a hamburger back in those days. I don't know if that burger place is still open. To be honest, I haven't checked it out. I should maybe Google map that, Google search that restaurant. But they had very, very inefficient burgers. Their process of making them was inefficient. The product was inefficient. But it was an awesome product. And a really great hamburger meal with fries and all that stuff. And if you looked at the burger, you'd be like, wow, that is not industrial type hamburger production. And they had a great big ad for it outside the restaurant, a poster thing, whatever else they put on the windows of the restaurant to promote the fact that their burgers were inefficient. And that was a very effective way of communicating, come get an inefficient product that will satisfy you, regardless of the price, right? Because they weren't selling you on the price, they were selling you on the value add of the food product, the experience, the whole deal, right? The shtick of getting an inefficient, highly effective meal. In other words, they were telling you, we are giving you extra value here, even though we know it's not optimized for efficiency, etc. We are, if anything, if we're optimizing for anything, it's for you to have a better user experience by eating a more effective, more delicious, more tantalizing, more satisfying product, which is our hamburger meal. Now, why do I point to a hamburger meal to talk to you about things that AI is going to do? Well, because in that very same restaurant, skip 30 years ahead to now, if that restaurant were to be open still today, and you were to write ad copy today for that restaurant, you could very much lean into the same messaging, right? Like, that could be messaging forever. Hello there, I see you saying hi. You can lean into that same messaging, right? You can lean into the messaging that says, hey, we can use AI, even though we're a restaurant, we can use AI to do a whole lot of things around the restaurant, but what we'll never use it for is we will never use it to make our burgers more efficient. We will always use AI bots to let us focus on the more meaningful work, which is to keep making you inefficient burgers that are very effectively delicious. Anyway, that is the long and short that I wanted to communicate to you. And if you guys are, well, I guess if I have another minute or two, maybe I'll just keep updating you about the idea, right? So you want to make the AI bots do the work for you so that you're not ever running out of use for these new tools. You want the tools to be lightening your workload. That is the point of them. Now, if you think, well, my boss is just going to expect me to use more tools, it's going to add another layer of complication to my work. Nope, that's the wrong way to use them. The right way to use them, right, is to use the tools to, first and foremost, do your routine mundane tasks as much as possible. You can use these tools to create essentially operating systems for your work, right? Procedural systems, operating systems, work systems for how you go through your day-to-day with your work. Or, by the way, if you're in school, how you go through your day-to-day with your learning, your education. If you're in volunteering, how you go through your day-to-day with your volunteer programs. Right? It doesn't matter if you're using it for your hobbies, you should make a system for, if you're a musician, your system for how you practice, how you train, how you train with other musicians, how you get ready for shows, how you actually do shows, what do you do after the shows, all these things, you can put these things in your process, right? And you can use AI to build these processes for you in a very visual way if you want, or at least in a very textual way. That's the easiest way I've found. And then you can transform that text very easily into visuals. I have created, in case you don't know, a wonderful document that shows you how to do all these things. It's in my LinkedIn. If you just go to my LinkedIn, search for my name, just look up Yasha Harari, and you can find me, connect with me, and I will send you the link to there's a Google Sheet. There's also a PDF or something like that, or a Google Doc, whichever one you prefer. I'll send it to you. It's how to use these tools. Kind of it's almost a primer, or it's not really a beginner tool, but I guess beginners can use it. It's a primer for getting the most out of your queries to create content, okay? But you can also use it. It's going to have an updated page soon for more advanced stuff. Or maybe I'll just make it a separate document, I think. Because I already have it in a separate document. I'll just share it. Anyway, if you contact me there on LinkedIn, tell me you want access to that document that tells you how to use bots in order to make the things that you want, including systems, including processes, including specific tasks, right? How to get the mundane out of your way first, how to build the bigger systems, keep the mundane stuff out of the bigger systems, like having the bots do the newer systems tasks for you. And that's it, right? Once you have those systems in place that are building your daily work life, and every day you communicate with the bots and tell them, hey, let's make this more efficient, let's make this more effective, let's make this more optimized, right? Then every day you have like little conversations with these LLMs and also SLMs, which are small language models, which, if you don't know, can actually be as effective or even more effective, get you answers that are as high quality or even higher quality with fewer mistakes often than large language models. So small language models, of which there are a ton, are similar machine learning on steroids program things, creations, which are trained on much smaller data sets. And the data sets that they're trained on are much more focused on a particular vertical or niche. Therefore, they'll know usually a lot more about that niche than a large language model, which is trying to be broad and know everything, like the know-it-all, you know? The know-it-all often doesn't know anything to the nth degree, right, to a professional degree. Normally, the know-it-all will know something well enough to convince everybody that he's an expert, except for the person who's an actual expert in that field. The actual expert in that field will easily see the flaws, as you know, this thing's full of mistakes. Like, for example, when I ask LLMs anything technical about marketing or crypto or data analysis or business modeling or, strategic consulting or any number of things, right? Technical stuff, real technical stuff. Inevitably, it makes mistakes. By the way, it'll make mistakes even when doing basic arithmetic, yeah? Here's the thing. With large language models, you kind of have to ask them the full question all at once. And when you ask them the question a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, by the time you actually get, to where you really want it to go, you're not speaking the same language. It's not giving you the same answers. It's totally screwed up everything, right? So let's say you have a long, complicated thing you want it to do. It's better to take the time and write down the prompt fully, or as close to fully as possible, and then ask it the question. Because if you ask it little bits and pieces here, which is kind of what you're supposed to do, because you're supposed to be having conversations with it, it actually screws up more when you have more conversations with it because of its lack of like proper memory and everything else. And I know Nano Banana has kind of a decent memory now with image making, but even with conversational stuff like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, all these tools, and many more, they all tend to screw up when you speak with it little by little. They'll constantly mess up facts that they just said to you 2 seconds before, right? So that's why, and even if it makes a mistake, like if you correct it, you can correct it, but you have to be careful because when you correct it sometimes, it'll glitch the system to remember that you corrected it, and therefore it has either some trust issues with you or who knows what. It doesn't, it feels like it's in a stage of some kind of, conflict or something in the way it has to converse with you. So the thing to do is to not accuse it of being whatever. Don't be negative towards it. Instead, just give it the whole question again. You can even wait some minutes or start a new chat or whatever, but wait some minutes. Don't just ask it immediately the same question. All right. So if you ask it a long, convoluted question about something to do, then you can, if it gives you the wrong answer, you ask it to create a task for you or create a chart for you or create a table for you with some very specific numbers and sources of information. When it inevitably will make a mistake, as it does, what you do is you just say, great, thanks, and you ask it again. All right, I gotta get going here.